You've felt it before, even if you couldn't name it. That moment when a conversation is happening around you, and something feels off. The jokes don't sit right. The opinions feel borrowed. Everyone's nodding, smiling, agreeing. But inside, you're not. There's a subtle pressure in the air. Just go along. And you could. It would be easy. Agree, smile, blend in. But something inside you resists. A quiet voice says, "No, that's not me." And that voice, it's not ego. It's not pride. It's not rebellion. It's your truth. But here's the dilemma. Speaking it out loud will cost you. People might stare. Some may laugh. A few will roll their eyes. They might call you difficult, judgmental, arrogant. And in that moment, you're standing at a fork in the road. One path paved with comfort and conformity, the other with courage and consequence. Which do you choose? Because let's be real, most people choose the first. Not because they're bad, not because they're weak, but because standing alone is terrifying. Humans are wired to belong. We are tribal by nature. We crave connection and approval. We want to be included, accepted, affirmed. It's one of our deepest instincts. Don't be cast out. But sometimes, belonging demands a price too high. It asks you to abandon your own voice, to sacrifice clarity for comfort, to betray your truth just to maintain peace. And when that happens, when you trade authenticity for approval, you don't just lose the moment, you lose a piece of yourself. Stoicism calls that out. It says, if being liked requires lying to yourself, walk away. The Stoics didn't chase applause. They didn't conform to gain favor. They didn't bend to be accepted. They stood where truth stood, even if they stood alone. This is where the courage of Stoicism begins. Not in grand speeches, but in quiet refusals. Not in rebellion, but in restraint. Not in noise, but in stillness. It's easy to go with the crowd. It's hard to say, that's not right. It's harder still to say it when no one else does. But that's what makes it powerful. That's what makes it real. And that's what makes it yours. So today, we're not just talking about going against the grain. We're talking about something deeper. How to hold your ground without losing your peace. How to stay silent without shrinking. How to be alone without being lost. This is about Stoic courage. The kind that doesn't need to be loud. The kind that doesn't need a stage, just a spine. And a soul that won't sell itself for comfort. Let's talk about what it really means to stand alone. Chapter 2. The Lie of Conformity. Nobody wakes up and says, today I'm going to become a copy. It happens gradually, quietly, not through force, but through fatigue. You go to work, you scroll, you nod along, you laugh when expected. You don't question. You trade a little piece of yourself for ease, for approval, for belonging. And for a while, it works. You fit in. You're liked. You don't cause waves, but slowly, you start to feel hollow. You hear yourself talking and wonder, is that even me? You make choices and realize they weren't truly yours. You smile, but it doesn't quite reach your eyes. This is the lie of conformity. That peace can be bought by keeping quiet. That comfort is more important than conviction. That unity is more valuable than authenticity. It's a seductive lie because it feels good for a while. But what you're really doing is shrinking. And if you shrink long enough, you forget what your full size ever felt like. The Stoics warned about this because they understood that the world rewards obedience, not honesty. It celebrates those who say the right things, not those who say the real things. It uplifts those who go along, even when they're going nowhere. Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, they all stood against this current, not by yelling, not by fighting, but by simply refusing to fake it. They believed that the path to virtue would often be walked alone, not because truth is exclusive, but because few are willing to carry its weight. And here's what makes it harder in today's world. We don't just conform physically, we conform digitally. We edit our lives, we filter our opinions. We post what's popular, not what's true. We measure our worth in likes, in followers, in engagement, and worst of all, we mistake agreement for connection. But the Stoics knew better. They didn't seek to impress, they sought to be impeccable. They didn't follow crowds, they followed conscience. They didn't seek fame, they sought freedom. And freedom, real freedom, begins when you stop trading your soul for applause. Because at the end of the day, the world doesn't need another copy. It needs someone who dares to be real. That someone might be laughed at, they might be ignored, they might even be hated, but they'll sleep well, they'll speak honestly, they'll live freely. Because conformity may give you comfort, but only authenticity gives you peace. So ask yourself, where have I gone silent to stay accepted? Where am I agreeing just to avoid the tension of being different? Where am I trading my truth for a temporary seat at someone else's table? The Stoic doesn't avoid others, but they never abandon themselves. Because blending in might keep you safe, but only standing up will make you whole. Chapter 3. The strength of stillness. Stillness doesn't get the credit it deserves. In a world that rewards the loudest voice, the flashiest content, the most extreme opinions, stillness can seem weak, passive, forgettable. But that couldn't be further from the truth, because stillness is not doing nothing. Stillness is choosing not to react. Stillness is restraint when everything in you wants to retaliate. Stillness is power that doesn't need to be proven. Imagine this. Everyone's scrambling to be heard, and you're silent. Everyone's racing to speak first, and you're listening. Everyone's fighting to look right, and you're choosing to be right, even if no one sees it. That's not weakness. That's strength with roots. The Stoics understood this. They knew that the most dangerous storms are the ones inside us. Pride, fear, ego, insecurity. And stillness is how we meet those storms without being consumed by them. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth. He could have flexed, commanded, shouted. Instead, he wrote in the quiet of his own journals, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." That's it. No grandstanding, no noise, just action. Quiet, clear, powerful action, because stillness isn't about absence, it's about presence. It's the refusal to be pulled by emotional tides. It's the art of stepping back instead of lashing out. It's holding the line when every nerve screams for reaction. And here's the irony. That stillness, it's often perceived as threatening. Why? Because when you're calm in chaos, you reveal the chaos in others. When you don't rise to the bait, it exposes the bait for what it is. When you're grounded, it reminds people of how shaky they feel. Stillness is a mirror, and some people are terrified of what it reflects. You'll see it in debates, in groupthink, in crisis. People push you to respond, to pick a side, to prove you're on their team. But the Stoic says, I'll choose when and how I move, not because I don't care, but because I care about moving from truth, not from impulse. Stillness is your shield. It gives you time to think, to observe, to choose the response that serves you and the moment best, because anyone can react. But it takes discipline to respond with integrity. And in this world, that discipline is a quiet kind of rebellion. So the next time the room is loud, stay quiet. The next time the energy is reactive, stay grounded. You don't need to match noise with noise. You don't need to meet chaos with chaos. You don't need to prove your strength by raising your voice. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not move. Not because you're afraid, but because your truth doesn't need to chase validation. It just needs to be lived. Chapter 4. You don't owe anyone agreement. Here's something no one tells you. You can be kind without agreeing. You can be respectful without conforming. You can be open without being empty. In today's world, disagreement is often treated like disrespect. If you don't align 100%, you're seen as a threat. If you challenge the consensus, you're labeled difficult, judgmental, or even dangerous. But that mindset is poison to critical thinking. It's a trap. Because when agreement becomes a requirement for connection, we stop thinking, we stop questioning, we stop growing, and slowly, we stop being ourselves. The Stoics rejected this completely. They didn't argue to win. They didn't conform to belong. They didn't dilute their convictions just to maintain peace. They were rooted internally. Seneca wrote, "A man must be content to be thought mad by fools." Translation, you don't need their approval. You don't need their applause. You don't need them to understand you before you live your truth. Because if your principles only hold up when everyone agrees, they're not principles, they're performance. The Stoics understood the difference between empathy and erosion. They practiced compassion without compromise. They listened to others, but remained anchored in their own reason. They believed in connection, but not at the expense of clarity. And that's a line we have to reclaim. You can hear someone and still say, I disagree. You can love someone and still choose a different path. You can walk with people without walking away from yourself. That's not arrogance. That's integrity. We often confuse peace with harmony. But peace doesn't mean agreeing with everyone. It means being at peace with yourself, even when others don't understand. And here's the truth. Some people will never understand your path. They will never see your reasoning. They will never appreciate your restraint, your thoughtfulness, or your refusal to be reactive. That's okay. You're not here to be decoded by everyone. You're here to walk your path with discipline, clarity, and strength. So the next time you feel that pull, to go along just to keep things easy, to agree even though your heart disagrees, to stay silent even though something in you wants to speak, remember this. You owe people kindness, but you don't owe them your alignment. And when you feel misunderstood, when the world tells you you're foolish for taking the high road, for holding your line, for walking alone, come back to Epictetus. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Improvement is not applause, it's alignment, not with the crowd, but with your own principles. Chapter 5. Final reflection. The quiet strength to be you. Let's be honest. Standing alone isn't glamorous. It doesn't always feel noble. Sometimes it feels isolating, awkward, unrewarded. Sometimes you'll walk out of the room wondering if you made a mistake. You'll question yourself because no one clapped. No one said, "You're right." No one followed your lead. And yet, deep down, something in you will feel clean, unshaken, uncompromised, clear. That's the reward. It's not public praise, it's personal peace. So ask yourself honestly, where in your life are you staying quiet just to keep the peace? Where are you blending in when you know you were meant to stand out? Where are you shrinking? Not because you're unsure, but because you don't want to make others uncomfortable with your clarity. These aren't small questions. They're the ones that define a life. Because the Stoic doesn't stand alone to be admired. They don't stand alone for attention. They stand alone when the truth stands alone. And they simply refuse to leave its side. Sometimes that will cost you comfort, popularity, relationships, certainty. But what it gives you in return? A life that's yours. A spine that doesn't bend to trends. A soul that doesn't fracture under pressure. A quiet mind. A clear heart. A deep breath at the end of the day that says, I was honest. You won't always be liked. You won't always be understood. But you will always be free. Free from the need to perform. Free from the fear of being different. Free from the weight of pretending. And in this world, that kind of freedom is rare. It's revolutionary. It's stoic. So today, give yourself permission to be misunderstood, to be mocked, to be called foolish. If that's the cost of truth, so be it. Because it's better to walk alone in clarity than to sit comfortably in a crowd that doesn't even know who you are. Stand firm, stay rooted, be unshaken. And remember, you weren't meant to blend in. You were meant to be real. That's stoicism. That's freedom. And that's all the strength you need.